Hello, everyone, and good evening. Jamie Anderson here. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you all as you join in with us. Let me know in the comments where you're joining us from. In case you're wondering what you're watching, this is the UFO S.H.A.D.O Technical Operations Manual kind of welcome briefing video with me and Chris Thompson, who will be joining me very, very shortly. I'd love to know where you're watching from. We've already seen a couple of questions about various bits and pieces, which we will be answering later on, and Chris will be giving you answers to all of your questions. If you ask live in the chat, if you are on Facebook, then you need to go to the address at the bottom of the screen so we can see your comment and who you are. Otherwise, it just says unnamed user, which is no use to us. So go to streamyard.com/Facebook, and then we'll be able to see your comments. So Lantern's Own, I can see from the USA there. Steve from Sussex in the UK. Mr. Tax Shark, interesting, in Massachusetts. Hello. Ottawa, Canada. We've got Washington, DC, all over the place, which is brilliant. So thank you all for joining us. And of course, Podsteron, Paul Hyde from the Isle of Wight. Good to see you, Paul. Chris, Merseyside, brilliant. It's a lovely thing, a testament to Dad shows, to see you all joining from all over the world. So thank you so much for joining in with us. In case you need reminding, we're here to talk about the UFO S.H.A.D.O Technical Operations Manual. And in case you need reminding of what UFO is, then thankfully, Chris Dale has pre-recorded this rather marvelous primer for you. It's UFO in 60 seconds.
Red alert. Confirming UFO.
UFO first landed on British television in October 1970.
Unidentified flying object.
Set in the not-too-distant future of 1980, the series followed the men and women of the S.H.A.D.O organization.
The Earth is faced with a power threat from an extraterrestrial source.
As they attempted to repel alien visitors from a dying planet.
We must come to Earth to survive.
Who were coming to Earth to plunder the human race for replacement organs.
This headquarters, controlling Moonbase, the satellites, and a fleet of submarines, is 80 feet below a film studio. 400 people work up there, and not one of them knows all this exists. Straker.
Ed Bishop starred in all 26 episodes of this live-action sci-fi thriller, which combined exciting special effects action with dramatic and daring storytelling, in which a happy ending was never guaranteed.
Interceptors, immediate launch.
Join the fight against the aliens.
Condition is red.
With UFO.
Good old Chris Dale, always on hand to guide us through any single Anderson show. So yes, I'd love to know what your first memories of UFO are, because obviously if you're here and you're not a UFO fan, then you may be in the wrong place. So lots of you may be familiar with Chris Thompson and his fantastic work. He's worked with us for a very, very long time, and he's extremely talented and extremely hardworking. It's kind of relentless in the amount of stuff that he creates. So lots of you will have the Moonbase Alpha Technical Operations Manual, this lovely orange book right here, which I've got next to my glamorous assistant in the purple wig. So yeah, lots of you probably already got this. I would love to see in the comments if you do have this. Basically, Chris did an amazing exploration of everything Space 1999 with an in-universe guide. So any aspect of being an Alphan he covered in this book, and it's been our most popular release ever, and I know has reignited a lot of passion for Space 1999. So Chris is the man behind the UFO Technical Operations Manual, and I will welcome him to the screen right now.
Hello,
Chris.
How's it going?
It's going very well, thank you very much. You're looking extremely dapper this evening.
Well, thank you.
Very smart, and wearing not only your own design on the t-shirt, but then your own render of a UFO on the screen next to you as well.
Just seemed appropriate.
Yeah, it is very appropriate, showcasing some of your pretty serious talent. So lots of people saying hello to you there, and lots of people who've got the technical manual. So before we move on to the UFO one, just reflecting on the Space 1999 Moonbase Alpha Technical Operations Manual, how big a task was that? And in hindsight, how much did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. It was a lot. I can't remember the illustration account, but essentially we were in lockdown, and I essentially spent the first 4 months of lockdown and then the rest of 2021 putting together this manual. So I really lived Space 1999 for an entire year. And hopefully that's reflected in the book, because one of the great things about writing it and being one of the illustrators is that, like, if I need an illustration, I can just make something up myself, just whack it all in there. So it meant that we could cover everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I mean this in the old-fashioned meaning of the word, the phrase, the jack of all trades, when it meant a good thing. I think you really are that in the best way possible. And the fact that you can you can write and then create the illustrations to go with it, it is an amazing thing. So if you haven't yet seen the cover of the book, here's the cover of the book. It's the UFO S.H.A.D.O Technical Operations Manual. Chris, describe to us what this is and from what perspective it is written.
So this is, whereas the Moonbase manual was kind of done in this welcome to Moonbase Alpha, you'll be staying here a while kind of way, the S.H.A.D.O Technical Operations Manual is like an orientation book for new recruits into S.H.A.D.O. And as people who know the TV show will know, no one is meant to know about S.H.A.D.O. It's meant to be this super secret organization. So the book is written slightly differently. It's not a holiday brochure or like a technical manual. It's a proper, this is a layout of the organization. This is where you will be serving. This is the submarine. This is the moon base. This is the satellite. This is the wig you'll be wearing. If we tell anybody about this, we will kill you. It's quite like, it's a different book because it's a lot more serious. There's not the same love and space adventure in there. It's something incredibly dark and serious is happening, and this is an overview of the situation.
Okay, so kind of as well as being a technical operations manual, it's kind of like a clandestine operations manual for S.H.A.D.O agents too.
And it's sort of, in some ways, it tells, like, the first section is the history of S.H.A.D.O, like all the 10 years from 1970 to 1980, sort of condensed into a couple of pages. And then the rest of it does sort of tell the story of the war so far. I've set the manual in 1983, so there's a little bit of progress, particularly at the very end. We have two potential directions the series could go. But for the most part, it's telling the story of what happened in the episodes from all the ones from the original series. And the comics as well. There's a little bit of touching on the comics. Okay,
nice. So you've drawn on all possible source material, really.
Yeah, well, the thing about UFO is, for a lot of the other shows, you would find there would be, for one, a writer's Bible, and while there was one for UFO, we just didn't have access to it. But also, usually Sylvia Anderson would take like a lot of time to write full character biographies for every single character, which may or may not have been used. And we just couldn't find any for UFO. So we really had to draw upon like the novels and the comics and the annuals to get everything we possibly could.
I know it's a painstaking task, and you've done another extremely thorough job, although not just you. Do you want to just talk a little bit about who else you've been working with on this? Because I'm sure there's some names that some Anderson fans will know.
So once again, I am co-writing this along with Andrew Clements. He is probably in the chat somewhere. Feel free to say hi, AC. AC has taken on the character biographies, and I wanted the alien section to read different from the rest of the manual. So AC has gallantly taken on the task of explaining what we know about the aliens. Coming back is Christina Logan, who did the uniform illustrations for the space manual. I thought she did a wonderful job back then, and she's kind of recreated her like 1970s fashion book style. And we've also got Graham Bleethman doing 2 illustrations in this one, and it's great to have him back on a manual and working, mainly because like I grew up on his original work, and like the manuals I did before this, I helped out on the Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlett Haynes manual, so it's nice to be able to sort of that to come full circle in a way.
Brilliant, yeah. All sort of ages and generations of contributors. So that's really, really nice to see.
And of course, we have my editor, Steve Weiss, and the Amazing 15 guys, Marcus. So, and they've done a wonderful job once again.
Yeah, it is a big team effort. I mean, the guys at Amazing 15 are fantastic at laying out designing books, and they've done a really astonishing job here. We're going to look at some pages very, very shortly. Now, a few of you have been asking questions about the book. Chris will be answering your questions, and I'll try if Chris can't, although Chris probably can, to be honest. I will also try to answer them at the end of this.
You will answer all questions, and I'll tell you if you got them right.
Exactly. We'll do our best. I'll be looking for a gold star. But first, we wanted to take you through some of the contents of the book so you know what to expect. Now, just as a reminder, I've got a little scrolling thing at the bottom of the screen. Facebook user, I don't know who you are because you haven't gone to streamyard.com/Facebook to let us know who on earth you are. So please resend that in a little bit. And Robert, this is one of the questions we're going to touch on at the end of this, so stick with us. So, Chris, in terms of what is in the book, you kind of touched on the style and the approach, but what can we expect to find in its glorious, sumptuous pages, some of which we're going to showcase right now?
Well, funnily enough, the first page I gave you was the contents page, so let's whack that up. There we go. Like last time, here's the contents pages. Here's the rough idea of what we're going to be covering, so we've got a section of Shadow. We've got the introduction, which covers the history. We've got Shadow HQ, we've got Moonbase, we've got vehicles, equipment, personnel, aliens, and finally the counter-alien operations, which is what I alluded to earlier with where the series may go. And unlike last time where we spent, I think it was almost more than 72 pages covering Moonbase Alpha and like the labyrinth of it, we've done a little bit less on UFO because there's not too much to Shadow HQ or to Moonbase. They're both much smaller like operations, so they're a little bit more condensed. But UFO has very complicated sets in comparison. In some ways, they don't have the almost Lego style interlocking that Space 1999 had. So all their sets were bespoke for the most part. So we delve into a lot of those, and and then of course the vehicle section is massive because UFO has a lot of vehicles.
Shadow has a pretty good fleet at its disposal, and I suppose because in a lot of ways it's a more wide open world, having the full roaming of the Earth, land, air, sea, space, whereas Alpha's kind of roaming ability was much more limited.
Well, for me, from an artist's perspective, that was an absolute godsend because if I had to render another lunar landscape,
there's some great variety in the pages of this book. So we can see some bits and pieces of it now. Would you like me to put up is this a Moonbase? I think I can see.
Let's put it up. So this kind of shows the evolution of back whenever we did Space Manual, we would do like a major illustration and then text and then follow it up with a blueprint and stuff like that. So we've kind of continued that format here. However, this is where Amazing 15's like really nice new style has come in, where they've made it look a little bit older, but it's still very like I love what they've done with negative space and the blacks here. And the lunar surface is brown. Just rolling with it. But it's like it really shows off the production design really, really well what Amazing 15's done.
Yeah, they've done a great job, and it's the whole book it draws on obviously your illustrations. You've done 100 and something.
I think combined all illustrations, it's about 182, 183.
There you go, 180 new illustrations plus lots of stills from the original series, stuff from the episodes, but also some other bits and pieces from rarer archive sources too.
Dug out some black and white ones and colorized them, that kind of thing.
Yes, some colorized black and white archive stills, which I don't think have been seen before. So there's a whole array of stuff. So our third spread, Chris, tell me what's going on here.
So this is kind of where the problem solving comes in, because anybody, again, who's watched the show will know that to get into the interceptors from Moonbase, you need to jump in a slide, and in the next shot, you're in the interceptor. And solving this problem, kind of like we had to do back on Moonbase Alpha with the landing pads going from crosses to squares whenever they go underground, I needed to design a space for the interceptors where they could be worked on, they could be moved up to a standby area, which could be depressurized really quickly, and then have like the slide be able to retract so that the ground crew could remove the step ladder that helps you get into the interceptor, and then it can be deployed to the surface. So it's
okay.
And also, it's alluded to that there is like an underground section in Moonbase, which is sort of what makes it special. Because the surface outpost is publicly known. Like whenever in the Dalatech affair, they do mention that they know that there is a military Moonbase there. So it's really the underground of Moonbase, which is what's special about it. And we see a little bit more of that in the book.
Nice. And is that challenging to try and kind of retrofit something like that to make it all connect up and work?
Not too bad. Like I think we discussed in the podcast that UFO is actually quite succinct, and everything does kind of work with it. And I don't do it as much. For everybody that has the Moonbase Alpha manual, they will know that I added UFO into the continuity in order to explain why there's lasers and missile launchers everywhere and things like that. So I didn't play on that as much here because obviously we're in the past, but you have like Moonbase having an underground level. It's in many ways what makes Moonbase Alpha quite special is the fact that most of the base is underground. So it would make sense that like all that work would get started here. So having like two major sections below Moonbase where the interceptors are and where the Moonmobiles can be raised out from, it was interesting. It was like trying to like sort of work back what they were able to do on Space 1999 and make it more logical here.
Yeah.
For the time frame.
So does this then connect in some ways to the future development of Moonbase Alpha? Are we seeing little hints of stuff?
Stuff they developed in this Moonbase will be used on the future development of Moonbase Alpha because if I remember correctly, I think the original manual, so therefore my manual, set the start of construction for Moonbase Alpha as 1983. So they're essentially planning it while UFO is happening.
Perfect. There you go. So it all ties together so neatly. Now, obviously, the space side is a massive part of UFO and Shadow's activity. This is a rather lovely image, so I'm very happy to put this up and leave it on screen for some time. Talk us through Space Forces, Chris.
Well, obviously, the Shadow's military arm has 4 separate forces to it. It's and it was quite fun to have these splash pages because I really enjoyed what Amazing 15 did with like double page spreads on the last one. So we have these nice little introduction pages where we can kind of show all the craft off in a nice little composition while also explain like this is the space branch and they operate out of Moonbase or like this particular spaceport. And yeah, it also means that we can kind of show off the more obscure vehicles. So the tracker vehicle in the middle, we ended up calling it the Neptune. It's seen in I think 2 episodes, one of which is stock footage. Yeah, it was nice to kind of develop a backstory for it and how it fits in with Shadow and everything. So yeah.
Nice. I mean, when you're going through this process and pulling things together like the Space Force and the different vehicles and going to talk about the interceptors, how much free reign are you giving yourself? Or do you try to make sure everything connects up very neatly with everything that appears on screen? What percentage is guesswork?
At the end of the day, if something's on screen, you can't really contradict it.
Absolutely.
That's sort of the rule that we go by. And then if you can use something that's on screen to connect with something else that's on screen, then that's helpful because obviously that sort of helps connect up the world. But the problem is that if it is something like how do you get into the interceptors? I just saw a comment there from a chap asking if there was any blueprints or anything to back up the entry into the interceptors, and unfortunately, no. They didn't have a large-scale set for the interceptor pilot to jump from the slide to the interceptor bay. So obviously they just did it with an editing cut. So what happens in between, we just don't know. I just chose the simplest way for it to get across because there's other ways. You can imagine like they could slide into the interceptors like Thunderbird 2 or something more complicated. But at the end of the day, like I think Graham's done this in some of his work. Sometimes you just got to whack in a stepladder.
The ultimate sci-fi aircraft fix.
Well, it sort of makes sense because like the interceptors are supposed to be able to launch from sighting a UFO to airborne in like 2 minutes. So having a ground crew on standby that is there to just pull away the ladder once and then let the entire area decompressurize when the things are lifted to the surface. Like it's a lot more simpler than having to yeet someone via slide through that tiny little roof cockpit hatch.
Yeah.
So, and you don't really want, particularly when it came to UFO, you didn't want to do anything silly because the show is that serious.
Yes. Yeah, you're not going to have an extended Virgil Tracy Thunderbird 2 launch ramp type get up into UFO. It doesn't quite fit, does it?
Well, that's funny enough. I had the same problem with Skydiver because the very first version I did, I don't have the image handy, but the very first version of the Skydiver cockpit, the Sky One cockpit I did, it had the slide in Sky One, and then it just led straight to the seat, which then pivoted up and raised. And it was only after looking at the sub itself, that's too long. So I've had to have him like slide down and then falls into the seat, and then the seat's got to take him forward, and then it's got to elevate up. So it's a very interesting way to get into that aircraft. And
okay, but you can. I'm sure everybody watching can appreciate the level of thought that you've gone to for this, and that there are no kind of easy fixes. You don't just go and then it all happens. You've kind of thought about every step and every stage in between.
Yeah, the only way it really, I would have to say, and then it all happens, is whenever you have to try to fudge an interior set with an exterior set. And like the lunar module is a perfect example of this, which I did fudge a little bit. Because like you can see very clearly on the model there's a cockpit and a canopy and a window, but on the interior set, it's just a control console in front of them. There's no window. So I had to develop this control console that will swing up over the cast, so whenever they're piloting it, they can see out, and then when it's landing, it slides down again. Stuff like that. That's kind of the interesting stuff that I have to stay up late at night while sleeping over.
Oh, Chris, your poor brain. Well, beautifully done across the board, I think. Next image, I think. Why not? I mean, I could look at your lovely stuff all day.
So this is the page that explains why they only have one missile for the umpteenth time. So there's I remember talking with Mike Trim about this, and they had envisioned it more. Instead of nuclear weapons, they'd envisioned the missiles as being more like cluster bombs. But obviously, in some takes on it, they are nukes. So this is basically explains why sometimes they are, and then they move into this much cheaper cluster bomb situation. I don't want to spoil the entire page, but basically, hopefully, after reading this, you will not have to post again why there is only one missile on the interceptor. Please.
Finally, that question is answered. Fingers crossed to everybody's satisfaction. I'm sure it will be. I just saw a nice little comment here, Chris. I think you'd appreciate. Chris, you're one of us, and you approach this like one of us would have done, only much better.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The time being 613.
Yes, thanks, Jay, for that. That's I think a real compliment there. Actually, that it is. It's the way that everyone wants to look into this show, but hasn't been able to.
Well, I think that's the like sort of that's always what kind of worries one when they're working on this kind of thing is particularly on Space 1999 and UFO to a large degree. There's been this very close-knit fan base that's been taking care of this while the rest of the world hasn't been. So it's really trying to do something that lives up to their expectations is what you're aiming to do in the end, like something that's kind of fits in with what they've been imagining. Because obviously, like loads of people have come up with ways of how to get from Skydiver to Sky One and things like that. So hopefully they enjoy it.
I'm sure they will, Chris. I mean, the thing is that whenever we're doing a project like this, all of us want it to be a way that people can get into the shows more. It's nothing designed to sort of take them out or make it seem less serious than it was and when it took itself originally. It's a kind of continuation of that same tone, isn't it? So I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed.
The same tone but with slides.
Everyone's going to be happy, Chris. I just know it. I'll go by the comments. Right. So tell us about this, Chris. What's this one of our interior sets?
So this is the interior of the Moonmobile, and which is, funnily enough, also the interior of the S.H.A.D.O mobile. But I've done a little bit of hickory-pokery here to make it work because it's one of the sets that doesn't really match up with what's going on outside. And I think even in the survival episode where Paul Foster's on the moon, one of the pilots looks behind him on a craft which only has windows to the front. So I've tried to sort of put together something which reflects what you see on screen, but also you can see what's in front of them now and how that relates to the windows and things like that.
Amazing.
And yeah, we've on the Moonbase Alpha manual, we only really did the one Eagle cockpit and then like a small Hawk cockpit. But this time round, we had to cover, like, to really get your money's worth out of all the vehicles, we had to cover, like, the interior of the Shadow Mobile, we had to cover the interior of the Interceptor, Sky One, Skydiver, everything. So, and cockpits, there's a lot of buttons, lights, and knobs, and they take a while.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Your hard work and talent are critically appreciated there by Martin and many others who are enjoying the showcase of stuff here. I can see one of my favorite images coming up from the book, actually. But before we get to that one, part of the quite expansive fleet of aircraft. Just tell us about this, Chris.
So this is the Kingfisher, and interestingly, this thing's never named the Kingfisher on screen. It's only really in the annuals, and I think pretty much just the annuals we found out the name. So you had to really dig deep to work out what the official terms for half of these things were. This is a vehicle that only showed up from one angle in one episode, and which is a shame because it's a beautiful design. And luckily, Mike Trim had a side-on concept art for it, which really helped in being able to extrapolate what the whole thing looked like. And it's really one of those things that it was great to showcase this kind of thing. And also you can kind of see how Amazing 15 have rendered the blueprints in this one, where they're inverted in this nice sort of shadow black and white, and then the annotations reflect whichever section they are in, which really pops for me. It's really nice, colorful way to show it.
Yeah, the color coding is great. It does feel like a different era to space in just the right way. So
a slightly funkier era.
I was going to save this question for the end, Chris, but I thought it's worth asking you now. When you're working on the manual, how often do you wake at 3 a.m. with a new idea? I mean, I know you, Chris, you probably don't go to bed until after that point, to be fair.
Yeah, it's more like when working on the manual, how often do I not go to sleep at 3 a.m. because I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I could put the living quarters beside the Skydiver main canopy and not behind it.
Yeah, see, so Chris is a hard worker and a night owl, so that's one of the secrets to how he manages this stuff. Right, I'm gonna bring up this image now, which when I was going through the first proof, I was really taken with the pen, the Skydiver pen. So this is. I just love this. I don't know, not quite sure why. It's very atmospheric. It's the detail, the scale of it. The water looks beautiful.
It's the set was, so they only made one half of this set in the Psycho Bombs, and it was quite interesting because they obviously have these secret bases all over the place. Like Shadow must cost an absolutely phenomenal amount of money, and you kind of want to put that on screen. So you have this big area where like a Skydiver can come in, it can turn around, it can dock. You've got the other side, which have added this nice little crane and like a little loading bay. And yeah, I just love a nice James Bond style secret base, and it worked really well.
It is a lovely one. I could just look at it all day. And there's something about the way you present these as well. The quality of the renderings and the art was just, I feel like I could step into it. So
yeah, particularly whenever I first started doing the Space 1999 one, I love, if you go on like Instagram, there's really simple like cube isometric 3D architecture drawings, and it was a really nice way to kind of show everything in that way, like that nice little like aesthetically pleasing kind of way.
Well, there's a lot of people finding it all very aesthetically pleasing. Stephen Richards reckons it looks a bit like the Stingray pen, but I mean, it makes sense that
like it was
design heritage.
The Stingray pen, but 6 years hence, like you kind of see where they started off with the Stingray pen, which was lovely, but it was kind of like a lot of bare walls and things. And then the Skydiver pen, which it's a bigger craft, slightly bigger craft. And there's going to be some controversy about how small Skydiver is, but always is.
You can't get away without some controversy, Chris. Otherwise, you haven't done enough of a job. So
yeah, it's not as big as people think it is. There's a door on the side.
Okay, well, we'll maybe get into that on the next stream next week, the day before launch of the book. We've just got a couple more spreads to share with you, and then we'll answer your questions and tell you more about how you can find out more about it and when this will actually go on pre-order. But it is very, very soon. Weaponry, Chris. I mean, clearly gadgets and tech an important part for S.H.A.D.O. So
yep, Shadows have guns up the wazoo, so we focus on a couple of those. But we've got the rather lovely missile launcher that's showcased in a couple of nice episodes here, and these were quite fun to put together. There's a lot less equipment in UFO because unlike Space 1999, most of the stuff in UFO is just like stuff they had at the time, just slightly more advanced. Like phones and things, but we still cover a bit of it, such as, again, rocket launchers, but also the makeup kits that the S.H.A.D.O Moonbase and HQ people wear, which are also like walkie-talkies, things like that.
No tech gone uncelebrated, essentially.
No, it's all in there somewhere.
And I guess as a nod to that, then.
Yeah. So again, I was really going a bit away with the large spreads. So here's the nice image of what I imagine is like a testing bay in S.H.A.D.O HQ somewhere, and with a little etheric beam locator from Thunderbirds just whacked in there for a bit of set dressing.
So there's little nods to other bits and pieces too. So
yeah, it's always nice to be able, like, I didn't really go too hard on Easter eggs with these things, but it's always nice to throw in something that people will recognize.
A few nods here and there. I think it's only fair. I mean, they were in the original show, by mistake or just through reuse in many cases. So makes total sense. A very important question here, I think. Is there respect for Ed Straker's wig in there, Chris, or do we miss that?
We did miss that one, unfortunately, mainly because at least at the start of it, that is his actual hair.
Yes.
It's only after like episode 2 or 3 they decided to give him a wig. Let poor Ed Bishop get his hair back.
So yes, we don't cover stuff about the kind of behind the scenes costume elements, but there are.
We do talk about the purple wigs
in series. We got an answer for the purple wigs. Don't give it away now, but
you did get an answer for the purple wigs.
There you go. I mean, there's your reason to get the book, if nothing else.
Finally, after 52 years,
you've finally got the answer. Very important again from Steve. How long were you on Moonbase to take these photographs, Chris?
That would be telling.
But lots of
they still don't know.
Until
this is how they find out. This is how I disappear.
No, it's a fantastic thing. So there's the standard edition of the book. All of this goes on pre-order, by the way, a week today. So we'll have some more details for that in a live stream next Monday, the 26th at 6:30, and then the pre-order will go live the next day. There is a special edition. Now we'll showcase you some bits and pieces from that special edition in the live stream next Monday. It's the 26th again at 6:30 p.m. BST. That's UK time. But we can tell you that we listened very carefully to your feedback from last time, from the Moonbase Alpha Special Edition. A lot of you were worried it was a bit inaccessible because of the price. So we have brought that down. And we've made sure that there are enough available to meet what we think will be the number of people wanting the special edition. So there's more on that soon. But Chris, do you want to just give us a little hint about some material that they might find inside?
What we've aimed to do is that the same on the Moonbase manga. We've tried to do something that was immersive. So there's nothing in there that will take you out of it. They'll feel like something you've been handed, like by S.H.A.D.O representatives to study, and it'll come with a lot of nice paraphernalia in very UFO designed, UFO styled things from the show, and some stuff that teases the future again of where it's going.
There you go.
That sounds big enough.
That sounds like a very good tease to me. Very good hint of what's to come. And paraphernalia is a great word because that's pretty much
it makes for a nice little like spread out on the table.
Oh, it does. Yeah, and you'll see some images of that next week. So just again to reiterate, we'll showcase the interior of the special edition and give you all the final information on that on Monday next week. So that's the 26th at 6:30 UK time. And the pre-order will go live the next day. So that's a week today, Tuesday the 27th. If you have some questions, then do pop them in the comments now, please. And Chris and I will do our best to answer them. There's a question about signed editions. I'm afraid the logistics of signed editions are just too difficult. We're all over the place. We're all over the, well, I was going to say all over the world. Chris is in Northern Ireland. I'm in Wales. And getting all the bits and pieces.
400 miles or something.
We might as well be on the moon, Chris.
We presumably will be doing events in the future where we'll both be there. And
yes, of course.
Generally, if I'm there, AC will also be there. So hopefully there will be opportunities to get us to sign them. It's in the Moonbase manual. Yeah, we will do our best to be around. Is there any extra info on S.H.A.D. in there? There is. S.H.A.D. I think we've got stuff on. There's obviously the general overview. We have the interior that you see in the show. You do get to see what's in that door that's at the front of the set. So a little bit peeking around the corner with S.H.A.D. But yes, there is a lot of material on S.H.A.D.
Okay, fantastic. Here we go. Reference questions. Did we draw on Captain Scarlet?
Yes and no. I will. That's all I will say at this point, Mark. But thank you for your question.
Okay. Obviously, a crucial one here. Do we cover the S.H.A.D.O cafeteria?
We don't show the S.H.A.D.O cafeteria, but we do tell you where it is.
Oh, nice. Okay, there you go. I wasn't expecting that. Trevor asks, what features did you find most challenging for this book?
Ooh, the cars I always find quite challenging because with a lot of the larger spaceships, they're fantastical enough to be easy, like you can get away with them, where in terms of artwork and design, whereas a car is really recognizable. So if you mess up something on a car in terms of the bodywork or the paintwork or just where something is, you notice immediately, particularly as they're such compound curves. They were the last thing I did on the manual. I kind of really put off doing them. And I did take a good couple of weeks to get them right, hopefully. So definitely the cars and the interior, the cockpit sets with all their buttons and things.
Nice. Okay. Is it the same size and page count as the Alphatech manual? It's the same size, so it'll sit beautifully on your shelf.
We do, in fact, have.
Oh, of course. I forgot about the reveal.
Yep.
Go on, Chris.
We have, courtesy of Jamie, we do, in fact, have the original case and a mock-up of the book.
Oh, now it is the mock-up, so
yeah.
No interior pages, right?
No interior pages, but also I think it'll be a bit shinier in person as well. But
bit more silvery, won't it?
Yeah, but
it does look very cool. So yeah, it's the same size as the Alpha book, slightly shorter page count wise.
208 pages.
Yeah, but there you go. But it's the same sort of structure and size, so it'll look great on your shelf, all next to each other. And I'm afraid that suitcase is not the special edition, so please don't expect original 60s Samsonite cases.
We did look at it, but it would have been very expensive.
It was not going to be feasible for anyone to have one of those, sadly. Oh, that's a good one, Peter Littman. We find out how far away the aliens planet was.
I kind of used the same logic as I did with Meta and Ultra. So if we go back to Space 1999, despite not having faster than light travel, they were somehow able to get out of the solar system to a different solar system and back within 8 months in Dragon's Domain. And funny enough, because I'd worked on that Zero X animated, the comic adaptation that we did a few years back, I'd started making use of the concept of rogue planets to just sort of hurl themselves through the galaxy without a star to like travel around. So I have not necessarily. I think the alien planet is a planet. I've not alluded it too much, but I've kind of foreseen it as being something that's being caught up in the Oort cloud, and it's not in a different solar system, but it's far away enough that it's still a problem, and you'd still need to use the speed of light to get there. Is how I've explained it. But yeah, for my own sanity, Close Up simultaneously is one of the first and last episodes because it would really need to take place over the course of a few years.
Yeah. Richard seems to agree with your supposition there.
Mm.
So Straker saying it'll take months to get there, and yet.
Well, there's that whole element of the alien technology is extremely advanced in UFO, and by the last 10 episodes, widely inconsistent. But for at least the first episodes, it's not unimaginable that a UFO would be able to travel from something in the Oort cloud at the speed of light to then get to Earth reasonably quickly, because they have the same issue in conflicts where there's this like super powerful UFO that Straker's afraid of, or like thinks is eventually going to turn up, and it does turn up within the time it takes for the space junk to get cleared away. So they do need to be reasonably close at the same time. And also, if you look at the end titles, it's in view of Earth.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It can't be that far away. Chris, the fact that you can reference these episodes and the reasoning just shows how carefully this whole thing has been thought about. I'm gonna limit this just to a few more questions before we wrap things up for this evening. So relatively quick fire. Lunar modules that went between Earth and the Moon, are they in there?
Yes.
All right, that's very quick fire. Do we find out how many aliens can fit inside a saucer?
The UFOs are not a standard size. They're as big as they need to be, which I find quite cool, actually, because it means they're so advanced that it's just the same design that's just bigger or smaller. But there is a interior I mocked up, which is very distinctly, this is what we think is in there, but this is not what is actually in there.
It is, and it is a very cool image. I think it's a really, really great rendering of what it could be. A little bit off topic here, but you can give a yes or no here.
There's no reason why not.
Excellent answer. There we go. I think. Oh, here's a nice technical one for you. Do we know why those UFOs spin?
Spinning is so much cooler than not spinning.
I'm sure that's the official line from S.H.A.D.O as well. Okay, look, Chris, you've shown us some amazing pages. We've had some great questions and great feedback from everyone. So thank you so much for watching. Chris and I will be back 6:30 p.m. UK time next Monday. That's the 26th of September, to give you all the final details about 24 hours before pre-order launch on the 27th. So we will have some more information for you there, tell you all about the special edition, maybe show you a few more images from the book, and answer any other questions you have. And then you'll be fully prepared to go, ready before pre-order launch on the afternoon of the 27th. So lots of people saying thank you so much. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's great to see you all. We'll hopefully see you 6:30 p.m. on the 26th of September for another one of these and answer all of your questions there. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And I guess we'll see you next week. Watch out for UFOs. Bye.
See you later.